best thing about these events is that it's just organized chaos. It's like everyone's going at once, trying to land something. But also, it's just skateboarding. Yeah, this would never fly in the Olympics. And that's great.
Which new sport is being added to the Olympic lineup?
Sport climbing, skateboarding,
and surfing.
Skateboarding. Well, you ever see skateboarding in the Olympics?
I think to be honest, I think they need skateboarding more than we need them.
Skateboarding is the best thing on earth, and it hurts me to see it sold down the river for pennies on the dollar.
If surfers go to the Olympics, they're going to make them march. And okay, so it's a beautiful march around the track. Surfers should never march, and they're going to make surfers march. And right there, it's kiss of death.
Why in God's green earth do you guys climb mountains?
We're insane.
These sports had a very radical, oppositional, grassroots subculture, and a notion that sport is not necessarily about winning. It's about self-expression, it's about aesthetics, it's about doing your own thing.
Climbers don't want to see massive companies profiting off of it.
They're calling this the most innovative Olympics.
The gatekeepers of the Olympics, if they can get it right and provide the platforms for these sports, it could be the biggest thing to happen to the Olympics.
For me, the idea of the Olympics, it's just such a part of everyone's childhood.
My first memory of watching the Olympic Games was, it was a long time ago. Being an athlete, I had the dream of wanting to be there, you know? But when I first started surfing here, it was really not a popular sport.
Previous to climbing, I was involved in two sports that were in the Olympics, gymnastics and ski racing. And I looked up to all of those athletes. Peekaboo Street, I got to meet her once. I also got to meet Dominique Mucciano. I remember those were moments of like, it was just like so cool to meet them and to know that they had been to the Olympics and they had won gold medals. You know, I would have loved to try for the Olympics. That's the biggest stage in the world.
But my goodness me.
Unbelievable scenes.
He came to these championships given a chance. He's gone away from these championships as the champion.
If you were a gymnast from age 5, you could look up to all these amazing gymnasts and strive for that, but that didn't exist in climbing. I think there definitely has been somewhat of a shift in like the climbing community. More and more youth climbers are getting serious about competition.
Let's get it. First try.
今まで日本で国際的な大きな大会っていうのが本当になかったので。
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, mommy. Sick.
私もそれにできれば出たいなって思ってます。
Awesome. I think there's only maybe 3 people that have done that.
Really?
And I'm not one of them.
Olympics is a dream of everyone. And
First Olympics and a bronze medal. I've worked so hard for it.
I never thought that surfing, skateboarding, or climbing could be in the Olympics.
I think the first time I heard that they wanted to make surfing an Olympic sport, it was a long time ago. I think I heard Fernando talk about it. And if I would have heard maybe another person talk about it, I'll be like, oh, I don't know. But because, you know, I know Fernando and I know how passionate he is, just hearing him say that, I'm like, okay, this is gonna happen. So I better, like, you know, I better start training from now.
In the case of Olympic surfing, it was really hard for us at the beginning, and when you start talking about a dream, everything starts with one lunatic. Hola, ¿cómo le va? ¿Cómo está? Hola, ¿cómo le va? ¿Bien?
Bien.
Qué día, ¿no? Maravilloso.
Sacame una foto con Fernando.
Está muy lindo. El Cerapete es hermoso, ¿eh? Hola, Luchi. ¿No me das un mate? I wanna have a mate. It's your morning boost. Salud. As we like to say, viva el surf. Oh, this is a cold mate. And here comes my queen. Gracias al agua. ¿Y esta tabla? Pero hay olas. Dice que está muy bueno, que va a estar. Estoy acá, chao. ¿La llave quién la tiene, el auto?
Ahora vamos, Fernando R., presidente de la International Surfing Association. Hola, Fernando, buenos días.
Buenos días. Algunos dicen que Dios es surfista. Si necesitaban pruebas, acá estamos hoy, ¿eh? Con estas olas en este lugar hermoso. Pero sí, estamos muy felices de que este es el año olímpico. Es un año muy importante, un año que lo soñamos durante mucho tiempo. I think that a lot of people pride themselves as being, you know, the father of something. I don't think I'm the father of Olympic surfing. Because this was an idea that wasn't my idea. It was Duke Kahanamoku's idea. You know, for me, the inspiration was always Duke Kahanamoku. He was the guy that got me into thinking about my role as an ambassadorship in the name of surfing to the world.
Duke, it's a real honor to be here on your island.
Well, Bruce, I'm glad you came to Hawaii.
For those of you who may not know all about Duke, back in 1911, he jumped in the Honolulu Harbor, swam a 100-yard freestyle, and broke the existing world's record by 4.5 seconds. He went on to compete in 4 Olympic Games, spanning a period of 20 years, won many gold medals. There's a story of Duke riding a wave at Waikiki one day for 1 1/8 miles. It's a legend over here in Hawaii, and so is the Duke. I've always been curious, Duke, was it more of a thrill for you to win those Olympic Games or ride some of those giant waves at Castle Surf I know you used to ride?
Oh, they're pretty, both are quite thrilled. But I think this surfing is much more the greatest thrill of my life.
It's Duke Kahanamoku's World of Surfing. And then I saved the page of the Duke. You're talking about 1918. And even as early as that date, I was already thinking of surfing in terms of how it could someday become one of the events in the Olympic Games. Why not? He asks. I still believe surfing will one day be recognized, voted in, and accepted. He was working, saying that one day we could be in the Olympics. So I continue his work making myself known that surfing wants in. But it was not really a clear process for new sports to be admitted. You didn't know what you had to do. I didn't have a plan. We didn't even know where to go. And at that time, I didn't realize that we were offering world where they needed the most, which is youth. And a possibility to renew and to reach out to billions of under 25, 30-year-old people in the world that don't relate to some of the traditional sports.
Mommy, I feel like you have to lead the way because you've been here. I've never been here.
Okay.
I've always believed that there's something more to skateboarding that the general public is not seeing. Like, I always wondered why it wasn't something that was more popular. I never understood why parents didn't want their kids skating. Concerning what it provided for me as an outcast, bullied kid, that it gave me a sense of myself, it gave me a sense of self-confidence. Skating was this blank canvas, and you can paint it however you want. And I think that that really spoke to kids who felt disenfranchised. I never thought of it so deeply that we're building our own scene, we're doing our own thing, we're going against the grain. And it was just like, I loved this community. I loved what it brought to me. I loved the sense of identity and self-confidence it gave me. I loved the culture of it, the music that surrounds it, the fashion, the attitude. It wasn't because I wanted to be rebellious, it was just because I found a sense of belonging. I never thought anyone was gonna take it seriously enough to put it on an event like the Olympics, because when I first started skating, the idea that the Olympics would ever recognize these creative, rebellious, counterculture sports or the types of people who do it just didn't seem like it was a reality. It sounded like a joke.
Pick up the goddamn board,
well,
didn't I?
You're gonna hurt me,
Didn't I?
man. Yeah, you did.
Did I not tell you to pick up the board?
Yes, you did.
Then you did it anyway, didn't you?
That's right.
Get your ass out of here.
Okay, I'm gone. Don't hurt me.
I think the core of the negative stereotypes of skating is that there were no facilities provided for us to do what we do. In the 80s, there were no skate parks, but there was this big contingent of hardcore, passionate skaters. And what do? They have to go find places to skate. So they're either breaking into backyard pools or building their own ramps in backyards, pissing off all their neighbors, or they just take out to the streets. Then they're frustrating pedestrians and police and building owners.
Please leave the property. We are. All right, now we'll leave. Thank you.
And that is exactly why skaters get labeled as outlaws. It wasn't because everyone wanted to damage property or to be in the way or to be a nuisance. It's because they just didn't have any place to do it.
In the first half of the 90s, the only people who cared about skateboarding were skateboarders. Skate parks, the landscape had been essentially dead.
Through the really dead years, skating was kind of scattered. There were a few pockets of pretty hardcore scenes, but everyone would come to Woodward to get together and skate.
action sports athlete where they train, and they'll tell you Camp Woodward. With word quickly spreading, Camp Woodward now attracts some of the best skateboarders worldwide.
Hi, and welcome to Woodward Camp.
I saw the very beginnings of Woodward. It was awesome for the new generation because it gave them a place to go. I met Gary back in those days. He was very supportive of skating. Gary was passionate about providing for kids.
You know, back then, people thought, this is skateboarding. These are not good kids. And I listened to them, and I go, really? So if the kids don't fit into a certain lane, you just toss them out? Is that what we do? Or maybe we should create a lane for them. And I said, we're gonna build a big skate park.
Everything that took place in the 90s, we were just so far ahead because by that point, we were family to most of the industry and most of the talent that was out there. My son, Brandon, was personal friends with all the skaters. He knew how much deeper skateboarding was than any sport that we have ever seen. Growing up here at Woodward, he had a good sense of everything about it, and I wanted his opinion.
The ideas all came from everybody, progressing things to a level that nobody thought was possible. In 1995, a skate bro by the name of Mike Frazier came walking in the canteen. Hey, I want to talk to you about this Extreme Games. He walked outside and he tells me about the Extreme Games. He goes, what do you think about it?
There was some cheesy shit in the first X Games. Bungee jumping, sky surfing, but as cheesy as that seemed, there were very few skate contests back then. It wasn't getting any coverage, so it's a chance to show what we do to a bigger audience.
Initially, it was a clash of a culture meeting an industry called TV.
Even in their best intentions, they still saw us as this sort of novelty.
There was like these purple and blue ramps and the craziest signage. So it took time, but they dialed it back. I would say that X Games really found its footing around 98, 99. And I don't think the mainstream acceptance of skateboarding and the greater landscape of action sports culture would have happened if Tony Hawk's 900 hadn't been captured at X Games in prime time, live on ESPN in 1999. That's the biggest, most important thing that happened to modern-day skateboarding.
Tony Hawk's got something up his sleeve right here. I don't know what it is. Let's see what he's got. Maybe the 900, I don't know. It's the 900. Never before in history of competition have we seen a 900 or ever.
I had been trying 900s for 10 years. I mean, literally the first one I ever tried was 1989.
At that time, I think the idea of the 900 was as foreign as like believing someone could dunk from like the three-point line. But he starts trying this thing. And then he puts one kind of down and slams to his knees. Then you're like, oh, this could actually happen.
Last try right here, Tony Hawk 900.
Here's the other thing, it's Friday night. ESPN is on in every bar across the country. And you got people cheering at the television. They've never even seen skateboarding before, but everyone understands what's taking place.
Everybody's cheering him on, including the best skateboarders in the world.
Oh, stop your feet, put your hands together.
time was expired and the contest was over, but somebody at ESPN realized this could be the shot heard around the world. And so they extended the time of the broadcast.
In that moment, I know that time was up and like it didn't count for the contest, but all I wanted to do was make this trick that I've tried for 10 years of my life. Thousands of attempts and injury and heartbreak. That's what it takes to learn a trick.
Everybody picture it. Here we go. Feel it. Are you kidding me? Tony Hawk, everybody!
He makes whole place goes crazy. The whole country goes crazy. Strangers are like spilling beers on each other and high-fiving and hugging. It was like breaking the sound barrier for skateboarding.
I really didn't know that one skate trick would be the thing that thrust skateboarding and me into a new stratosphere of recognition.
Literally was like overnight where all of a sudden everybody wanted to be Tony Hawk. He's on Good Morning America, he's on Letterman.
Our next guest is one of the legends of his sport and has been called the Michael Jordan of skateboarding. Here's Tony Hawk.
You have sold $1 billion of video games. That is insane.
I was just happy to make a game that represented skating well. I had no idea that it would become this video game icon.
The X Games really became the reason that the world learned about all these sports. People realized that there was this huge demographic of kids who were not only doing their own thing with these really cool sports, but they also were influencing a greater landscape of kids to want to be like them.
So suddenly all these sports fed off each other and created a culture. It created a movement.
That progression is really what took skateboarding to the next level. And really, that is eventually what got the attention of what we call the Olympic Games.
I always speculated that the IOC had to be paying attention to skateboarding. There had to be discussions. But for as mainstream as it became, it still was like rebellious as f. And so I am not surprised that it took as long as it did for these sports to finally arrive. Because at its core, the gatekeepers of the Olympics tend to be pretty conservative and of old thinking.
In the country of Switzerland is the small city of Lausanne. It was here at the Château de Vidi, the headquarters of the International Olympic Committee, where Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of the modern Olympic Games, spent the last years of his life.
So the Olympics begins in its modern incarnation in 1896 in Athens, created by the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, founded by a French aristocrat called Baron de Coubertin. And Baron de Coubertin's vision of the Olympics is a display of manly virtue, for which the award is the polite applause of women. This is a very 19th century model in which the gentleman, aristocrat, amateur athlete is the prized figure. But while, of course, it initially serves this tiny, tiny elite group, we see over the last, what is now 120 years plus, a steady transformation in the social composition of the athletes. What's interesting is that through the whole history of the Olympics, people are saying this is the pinnacle of sport, this is the pinnacle of organized sport, but the 1990s is a moment of change. Climbing, surfing, skateboarding, these sports have been growing so rapidly. And the IOC, I think, has been, you know, like a lot of big cumbersome bureaucracies, a little slow to respond. With the X Games, initially the attitude is like, who are these upstarts daring to stage, you know, a kind of proto-Olympics with all of these weird and rather unsavory characters from weird and unsavory subcultures, and who the hell is ESPN anyway? But I would say the late 90s, early 2000s, the Olympics, traditional audience is getting old. That audience is aging and shrinking.
In 2003, I was in New York City and got a call from the gentleman over at NBC. They asked whether I could stroll over to a meeting. So I did a little few block hike over to NBC 30 Rock and ended up in a meeting with the upper echelon of NBC. They just asked me about youth relevance and the future, and little did I know that somewhere along the line they went through a search process of who are they going to send to Lausanne, Switzerland to deliver the message at the IOC that the world is changing. And somehow, I got elected. I was off to Europe, and the next day had a presentation.
When I went to Switzerland, it was the meeting of the international federations, all, Olympic, non-Olympic, they all get together. I don't know anybody. So there is a meeting with the heads of all the non-Olympic recognized federations. But by mistake, I go inside the meeting with the IOC and I talk. And I start talking about surfing and youth and action sports, you know, the things that I know. And I say, guys, remember that there is something called X Games? It's where the youth sports are. You missed the boat. It should have been yours. It belongs to a private entity, to a TV channel, because you guys were sleeping at the wheel. And this is me telling them how to run the show. They look, who the f is this guy?
Yeah, no, they didn't get it. They didn't get skateboarding. It was just so not in their realm. I always use the comment in a way, you know, I might as well have stepped off planet Mars. So when I came back and I told NBC, there's a lot of old people governing this whole Olympic game thing, and they're never gonna get it.
I was like, these guys don't understand, they don't really care. And then one guy says, hold it, stay here. I'm gonna bring somebody you need to meet. The guy disappears, come with a young guy. I never seen the guy before. Says, you guys need to talk to each other.
I'm Kit McConnell. I'm the sports director at the IOC. I look after all of the organization of sport at the Olympic Games. I work with all of the international federations, with the 33 sports in the summer games, the 7 in winter. And I work with all of the athlete programs as well. The process for how we actually get sports and events into the games can seem complex from the outside. In fact, it's in some ways pretty simple.
It's so complex. When I arrived, I didn't understand. I mean, you need to Google this and look at it in detail to understand.
So when we're looking at new sports or new events coming into the program, first of all, they do have to be part of an international federation recognized by the IOC. The reason for that is not so much just about boring bureaucracy, but allows us to work at a national level also.
So you have to have an international body. Then you have to have a minimum number of nations that have their own national body,
which are like Olympic committees for regions of the world. They're called continental or regional organization. Pan American Sports Organization, the Asian Olympic Committee. Africa has one, Europe has one. And then there's subsets.
We make sure they tick all the boxes in terms of organization, but it's really about seeing how can they fit into the games in a very simple way. What do they add to the games?
The Olympic movement over the last few years has been saying, right, we'll have one new sport, or we'll have 2 new sports this time around, and sports then have to go through a competitive process.
We take those proposals through an internal review process and then to the executive board and the IOC session.
And I say, oh my God. Okay, so I created a filing, made a petition, got the ISA recognized, went to Lausanne, but there were a bunch of new sports applying, so we didn't even make the shortlist. I was like, this is not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while.
In this journey, we had other friends in other sports, Fernando in surfing and Marco in rock climbing, that were navigating the same waters we were in understanding the world of the International Olympic Committee and the Olympic Games.
I mean, based on everything the IOC wanted, skateboard, I think, had like a longer shot because of the lack of some of those structural things that the IOC wanted, but not on Marco's case. I mean, sport climbing is an exemplary organization run in a great way. And Marco is a great leader. He's an amazing guy.
From the beginning, we knew that it was really difficult to get into the Olympics. But myself and my group of people think that today is the moment where we need to put this strength in the world of sport. And the Olympics are the biggest stage in the world. We try to propose the sport to the IOC. Nobody knew about climbing or sport climbing. Actually, most of the people around the world, including IOC members, they thought we were climbing the mountains, so they thought that we were doing some dangerous activity. So one of these steps was we organized an exhibition and a demonstration, basically.
There was often this demonstration sports that came along for various editions of the games. Demonstration sports in there really gives us a good test for the way they could fit into the games program itself.
Baseball, a demonstration sport here in 1988 at Seoul. We look forward, of course, to 1992 when baseball becomes a full medal sport at Barcelona.
I remember like the word demonstration being thrown out. The IOC wanted to bring some athletes out to showcase climbing. And I was one of the athletes that was invited because I was doing well in the World Cups at the time. But they were very clear that it was not a competition. It was just to show what climbing was.
It was official and unofficial. Unofficial because we couldn't make any real promotion with brochure or whatever. Official because you need the permission to show any kind of thing during the Olympics.
Nobody came by. I don't think many people even knew that we were there. We didn't do any press or anything. But I suppose it was like a baby step, right? Like, you know, we were there. We were at the Olympics.
We were lucky because from the very beginning, the International Olympic Committee realized that the sport had values and they helped us to grow the sport in the proper way. For me, it was also important to get inspiration. We had tickets for the snowboard event. The half pipe had a bleacher for 15,000 people. Especially the male event was huge. It was, what was the name of the flying tomato? John White. It was amazing, it was crazy.
The predecessor for climbing, surfing, and skateboarding, a pathbreaker in some ways, is snowboarding, which had a very radical, oppositional, grassroots subculture, and that brought something very different to the Winter Games.
They included snowboarding in 1998. It was treated as a joke. Like, look at these kids with their hairdos and their clothes. One guy tested positive for weed. They're like, see, a bunch of slackers.
Snowboarding was kind of mocked for being there, even in the way they talked about it from the Olympic desk.
Do you know what those moves were, Jim? No, Susie, I don't. Haha, moving on to archery.
The narrative from the organizers was, you know, this is just a kids event, like this will come to pass. We tried. But to the younger audience, that's what they wanted to see, because they like snowboarding. It's somewhat rebellious. They think it's cool. And so fast forward to 2002, and they started to figure it out. They figured out that this stuff actually sells. Kids want to see it.
2002 was a little bit better, and that really started to begin a little bit more respect. But it was really Shaun White that changed the entire definition of snowboarding at the Olympics. Here's this person who's like Tony Hawk or a Kelly Slater or a Michael Jordan or any other, like, you could walk up to a sport, I've never seen it before, but that person is clearly performing at an elite level. I would like to watch it. That's when the snowboarders started to get respect as real stars of the games.
You're on the world stage. It's like, to win something like that just carries so much weight.
I'm like walking through the crowd, and there's like Elton John and Tom Cruise. Everybody seemed to know my name.
Suddenly the whole world was focused on these athletes, on that sport. Everyone was talking about these sports with everything that came along with it. The athletes, the community, the music, the culture, all of those things coming from outside the games to inside the games.
We want to offer a stage where what they do day in, day out is just put out there to the greater number. And that's the ultimate form of respect. We're saying, okay, we're just here to help you do what you do best, just on a bigger stage.
The journey we've gone through with snowboard over the last 20 years has really taught us some lessons. I think one of the key lessons was keeping that culture and not trying to take something that existed in a really exciting way outside the Olympic Games and changing it when it came into the Games. In many ways, that was the first step in a journey that has led to all of the innovation that is now happening in the summer program.
Double cork 1260, and he puts it down. Shaun White takes gold.
I think the catalyst for skateboarding in the Olympics began with snowboarding. And I believe that at that moment was like, we need this energy in our summer games. And I don't know who behind the scenes was starting to flip the switches, but that's probably when it started.
When I made my first trip to Lausanne in 2003, they explained the organizational and what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and said, hey, you know, when you get it all organized, come back and see us. So I flew to LA and called a few people in skateboarding.
We all met at some hotel, I can't remember, around 2003, and he laid out what it means, how to go about it.
Creating a proposal for the IOC is unlike anything you'd encounter in the action sports scene. Olympic proposals are evaluated against 5 categories. 1, the history of the sport and the number of affiliated national federations. 2, the institution, how is it governed? Gender equality and participation is a must-have for new sports. Number 3, what is the value add to the Olympic movement? They're looking at the sport's image and whether it represents Olympic values. 4, popularity. Are the best athletes in the world competing? And 5, what is the cost of staging the sport and its financial status?
Everybody was like, what? Who's gonna do this? Tony was to the left of me. I look over at Tony. He's looking at me. He's not confused. He knows what I did. I go, it's us that's going to do this. The people in the room here. And they go, oh, you know? Yeah, it's us. And we formed a thing called USA Skateboarding.
And I remember this one guy during the meeting drawing up USA Skateboarding logos, and one of them was just a Budweiser can. And I was like, yes, this is the challenge of everything, is that we are very unorthodox, very counterculture, and how are we going to fit in the Olympics? And it's probably not through beer logos.
It was sort of like we armed the militia and said, go home and wait. If we need you out to fight, we'll send an email.
I completely underestimated the amount of work, but I knew that one of the key components to present an impeccable case to the IOC was be sure that the professional surfers are embracing the cause.
If these sports want in, or any sports want to compete on this global stage, then there must be equal men and women competing in them.
The name of the new federation is International Federation of Sport Climbing, the IFSC.
Fernando, Marco, and Gary were all systems go to get surfing, sport climbing, and skateboarding into the games. They get denied, try again. Organize, get denied from their peers. Deny things themselves, try again.
During this process in 2011, we made that trip to Lausanne. My son Brandon was with me, and we just got a shipment of Woodward Beijing skateboards. It was his idea to take the skateboard as a gift, and it was the perfect little tool that really brought us together.
And I was trying to figure out what to do. I'm talking to people, you know, talking to the head of marketing at the commission, and talking to important people. Figure out how we can do it, how we can build this up in the right way.
And if not us, then who?
We shall now proceed with the selection of the one additional sport.
In 2013, they voted the new sports for Tokyo. There were a bunch of new sports applying, and wrestling. Wrestling being the sport that was kicked out 6 months earlier.
The International Olympic Committee shocked the sporting world today. Beginning in 2020, wrestling is out of the Olympics.
It was at that time the rules were saying that to get into the Olympics for one sport, you needed another sport to be removed. It was a big mess because the executive board in the beginning proposed to remove wrestling, then there was a multi-millionaire campaign from wrestling.
If you want to kick out sports, to bring new sports, you're gonna have a huge resistance because everybody's scared of being expelled. So everybody's gonna be like this. It's like a race in which everybody has their elbows out. Nobody can pass anybody.
We made this presentation and we left the room, and my team was, oh, Marco, you think we have a chance? I said, no, we don't have a chance. I read in the eyes of the IOC board members that we didn't have a chance.
With 49 votes, wrestling has been elected for the 2020. Congratulations to wrestling.
I realized that the failure was not only our failure, it was the failure of the Olympic movement because they were not able to rejuvenate, to change.
All this energy, all this money, all this effort, all these meetings, all this works for nothing. It was literally impossible. It was not going to happen in my life. So I spent maybe 18 years slamming the door and pushing the door, which would not open, of course. So I was like desolated. I didn't realize how hard it could be to be alone. All the time that I put in Olympic surfing, I took away from the family first.
My son Brandon, he was always part of the process and where we were with changing the Olympic Games. He knew how much deeper skateboarding was than any sport that we have ever seen. He was a non-skateboarder, like me, that got it. So yeah, I ran everything by him. He knew every move I was making. He knew everything along the fight because 90% of the fight, he was perfectly fine. In 2011, we were coming home on a flight. We get up out of the seats and he goes, my thigh's tingling. No pain, just tingling, and finding out it was a sarcoma, a form of bone cancer.
Now, when Brandon was diagnosed, I just immediately wrote it off as, okay, this is a challenge in life. But there was no doubt in my mind we weren't going to lose this. This was just a little detour that's going to make us stronger. Yeah. Didn't quite work out that way. It was tough. But he gave me a little mission.
I think the exact words were, the Olympic Games needs that board with 4 wheels. You gotta pull it off. You gotta do what's right for the Games. Because all it's gonna do is turn skateboarding on to kids around the world. And how different cultures figure it out. Dad, it's gonna be so cool for you to see. If I was thought to be intense before, I'm 100 times more intense now. I don't take no for any answer, and I am driven. Because that's what Brandon asked me to do. During this journey, you had the inner workings of the IOC that is looking to get the tools to always make the Games better, but that management has to get approval from the overall membership. And until there was leadership in place that had that same passion to move forward, we weren't going anywhere.
All right, this is master interview, take 1.
So can we just start off with your early days with sports? Kind of like what attracted you to sports in general?
Germany's Thomas Bach, one-time fencing Olympic gold medalist, now arguably the most powerful man in sports.
I have the pleasure to announce that the 9th president of the International Olympic Committee is Thomas Bach.
It's the first time that an Olympic champion has been elected to be IOC president.
Being an Olympian is something unique in your life. You realize that this is not only about your performance, you're part of something much bigger. Yeah, winning a gold medal, becoming Olympic champion is of course a dream coming true for every athlete. But personally, I must admit, we did not care about the IOC and who is the IOC. You're focused 100% on your sports experience. And as long as everything is going well, you don't care who arranged it for you. It's a unique position in the IOC where you can shape the future of the Olympic Games. You have your roots. You have to keep your roots, but just being traditional does not help you for all the future. The sport is not in a position anymore where we can sit somewhere in a stadium, organize a nice event, and wait for people to come.
We have to take a look at the world around us. We want to inspire children by giving them better access to sport. We want to engage with them wherever they are. We want to show that this is our vision for the future of the Olympic movement. The time for change is now.
Now, it's one of the most significant shake-ups in its history. The International Olympic Committee has approved a package of reforms dubbed the Olympic Agenda 2020.
IOC President Thomas Bach proposed 40 recommendations as part of his reform agenda.
Part of its package of reforms known as Olympic Agenda 2020, the IOC will scrap its cap of 28 sports in the Games.
The Agenda 2020 reinforced the focus on youth. To maintain interest in the Games, you have to have an entire population. And this is across all age groups and across all continents.
Our rules changed, and for the first time, we didn't have to take a sport out of the program to add a new sport into the program, which was always the barrier previously. And that flexibility was a game changer for us because it meant we could have the conversation with more sports coming in.
Everything that had to be changed was changed, or everything that couldn't be changed is able to be changed. So all the limitations for new sports were removed.
Who is in favor of this change? You can consider my hand always being raised there.
It was unanimously approved, but maybe some did not realize what it meant at the time for the new sports. Only after then we discussed about surfing, about skateboarding, about climbing. And some people would raise their eyebrows and say, you know, this is maybe too much, and how can you take this sport on? So there were all sorts of questions, of course.
You know, when he became president is when I got the phone call that now this is a serious mission to get this accomplished. So the sort of ball game was changing. And this was only to say that we're in a position to do this. We still needed to be voted in at the IOC session that would be right before the Rio Games.
Before the meeting, I spent 3 or 4 days in Rio surfing, going and surfing Barra. And all my family was there. So we were waiting for this to happen. And then the day of the meeting, I have a crew, they are like a TV crew from Argentina, following me. Tal vez por ahí hoy, a las 5 de la tarde, 4 de la tarde, cuando se haga la votación, tal vez estemos en los Juegos Olímpicos de Tokio.
You hope that when you fly to Rio to be part of a meeting, typically in that situation, everybody trusts the reason why we're sitting there. But yeah, it's not official until, boom, the vote takes place.
Thank you again for your report. And now we can move forward to the proposal of the new sports package.
President Bach, distinguished members of the IOC, I am honored to present proposals. Our 18 proposed additional events are drawn from 5 very different sports: baseball and softball, karate, skateboarding, sports climbing, and surfing.
You know that this Tokyo 2020 proposal is historic and the first of its kind.
It was brought up on the screen, and here we are. And the sports were all sitting there in their hot seats.
People were watching from all around the world, and at that moment there was really no guarantee that we would be in because, well, you know, until the last moment it's a vote. You know.
So we can move forward to the vote. Who is in favor of this proposal, please raise your hands.
Thank you. This proposal is unanimously approved. Congratulations, Tokyo 2020.
As soon as the vote was in, everybody was screaming, everyone was happy, celebrating. Bach went there for the photo in the front on the side, and we weren't there. Finally, well, you guys want to take a photo or what?
You want to have a photo or no? Then
President Bach invited us on stage, and he came to congratulate all of us, big hugs. It was really, wow, it was great.
So we went, we took the photo, and then I ran. I ran down the stairs, ran the escalator, ran. My family was up there, and they were all screaming. So more hugs, more photos. It was a pretty surreal day. This is sport that comes here to help the Olympic movement. Just like snowboard changed the Winter Games, we hope to help change the Summer Games.
Can you repeat since the beginning, because we kind of missed
just a minute.
the beginning? So.
What do you want me to cry again? I can't. Now I'm getting excited.
Well, there is a lot of emotion in my heart today. When we started this game, this sport in 1985, so a few years ago, we would have never imagined someday we would be here and be part of the Olympic program.
You can see the journey that a lot of the leaders of these sports have been on to develop their sports, promote their sports, and what it meant to them when their sports were finally confirmed in the program for Tokyo 2020. When we think about people like Fernando, who's dedicated his life to the sport and the community, with others like Marcos Scalares in climbing, the skateboarding community, including Gary and others in California. All of these people, the sport means so much for them, and they knew what the Olympic opportunity would mean.
This is what I read that day at the press conference. Thank you, Ricardo. It's a very special day, and I'm talking on behalf of 35 million surfers. I'm here to express our gratitude to Tokyo and the IOC. As president, it's been 23 years paddling this amazing Olympic wave, and finally, it got to the shore. So we're very happy. We're very especially excited as surfers to catch that incredible wave that seemed so elusive for so many years. And just in closing, a little trip back memory lane, a very important one for surfers. 100 years ago, the most famous surfer in history, his name is Yuka Hanamoku, 3 times gold medalist, swimmer, asked the IOC to include surfing in the Olympic Games. And I always dreamed with that. It took us a while to get here, but we were busy surfing, you got to understand, but we're here. Now 35 million surfers have a path to become Olympians, and they will bring surfing unique DNA and youth culture to the Games. Muito obrigado. This is the longest way of my life. So that's it.
Tokyo becomes the first host city to propose new sports for their Olympics. And the Olympic Games are looking more like the X Games. Surfing, skateboarding, sport climbing, all debuting for the first time in Olympics history.
E eu acho que as Olimpíadas pode mudar a vida de muitos atletas. Disso é uma honra, é um sonho e espero estar representando o Brasil lá em Tóquio.
I've never been against climbing in the Olympics. I was dreaming about it since I was a kid. I'm very happy that climbing is in the Olympics, and I'm going for it.
We're really excited for the recognition of climbing as a sport.
I think it's great that they're moving into the Olympics because it shows that people actually respect the sport.
It's gonna be the first time that I'm gonna really represent my country, and I'm gonna skate every day and try to get my mind ready to go there and compete.
でやっぱりアメリカとかだったらスケートボードを仕事として生活している人はすごいいるけど、日本はそれはまだ全然なくて、男子だったらもうアメリカに 拠点を移してそこで生活している人が2、3人ぐらいいるんですけど、女子はまだないので、自分もそういう先駆者みたいな感じになれたらいいなと思っています。ここは自分の第二の家みたいな感じで、本当にこのスケートパークに育てられました。私は昔はずっと遊びでやっていて、みんなと楽しく滑ってたので、オリンピックって決まってから急に競技っていう感じの見られ方とか違いが大きくなったと思います。5、6歳の時から始めていて、初めは父がやっていたんですけど、自分が小さい頃は本当に周りで女の子でスケートボードをしているっていう子は本当に少なくて、やっぱりそういう面では女子なのにっていう見られるところもあるし、なんて言うんだろう、女子がするからかっこいいとかそういうところもあるので、今やっとそういうところが動いてきたっていうか進化してきている途中ですね。
Mami Tezuka from Hikonishiga, Japan, Vans team rider.
Tail slide, perfectly done, all kinds of style. Oh, the side does that. I don't know what we call that, but
that is creativity. That's part of the judging criteria. Be creative. Mami did just that.
大会のない時だったりは日本とアメリカ半分半分ぐらいなんですけど、今年1年はもうスケートボードに集中してオリンピックも目指すので。
I think for skateboarders, surfers, and climbers at this Olympics, they are entering into an arena where I don't care what level of intensity they've experienced at a competitive level before, they have not felt what they are about to feel. And then in this case, like, your sports definition to the rest of the world is now at stake. And your performance, what you're able to bring to the table on that day, right or wrong, is going to define what the rest of the world thinks about your sport at this time.
When I heard that surfing was confirmed, it was incredible, you know? And I'm like, okay, like, I have to go for it. I need to try this, you know? Even if I don't qualify, like, I need to give it a shot.
As soon as the Olympics were announced, it was a no-brainer. That was my goal.
Is this all it's gonna be?
I finished college the year before the qualifying year for the Olympics took place. So I was able to not be in school and travel to World Cups for the first time. So in 2018, I went to 4 bouldering World Cups and had my best year yet. And that gave me a lot of confidence that I did have what it takes to make it to the Olympics.
Yes! I've enjoyed watching Mommy's rise over the last couple of years. I saw her when she first started competing, where it was like, that girl's gnarly. I love seeing her skate because she tries the hardest stuff. Like, she goes for it. And she pushes herself. And she takes the hits to get to the place where she wants to be. And I have massive respect for that. Wow. I wouldn't have made that.
For all of these sports, you're looking for flow. You're looking for technical tricks being executed with almost ease. You know that was very hard, but they made that look so easy, and it just flowed into this next thing. And they're also doing it with personality and style.
I know there's a lot of stake, you know, qualifying for the Olympics in the ISA, so we need to prepare. I just have one shot, you know, so I have to do it right.
And we're off. Here we go. First wave here in the grand final.
And with an opportunity to solidify a provisional spot for those Olympics in 2020, as well as a gold medal.
This is Sofia Mulanovich, former world champion, representing Peru. Surfing with a lot of spark and joy, elation coming from Sofia.
I've always got a lot of support here in my country, in Peru, and my family and my friends. Also, 2 weeks before I found out I was going to be a mom for the first time, so that was a huge motivation for me in every heat. What I love about competing in the ocean is that not always the most informed surfer and the most talented surfer wins, you know? Sometimes the surfer that is more connected with nature that day wins.
Your official ISA World Surfing Games gold medalist is going to be none other than Sofia Mulanovich.
Being able to win that contest and winning a world title after 15 years, it was incredible. You know, that's something that I'm never gonna forget.
When the announcement came out that climbing was going to be in the Olympics, I think it was bittersweet for me. Like, I was excited for the sport, I was excited for the athletes who were competing, but I wasn't competing anymore. And I think there still is a part of me that wishes that it had happened earlier, or that I was 10 years younger. I would have loved to have gotten that opportunity. You know, I mean, who doesn't want to go to the Olympics for their sport?
To me, I think the Olympics have always represented the pinnacle of sport. It's actually funny, I went back on my Instagram and found from 2013 a post saying like, oh, get climbing into the Olympics. So it was clearly something that was on my mind for a really long time. And then to actually qualify for Team USA and be going to the Olympics, that became my biggest goal.
Did you think you would qualify in Toulouse?
I thought going into the season that my best chance was definitely going to be in Toulouse.
It's been an almost 8-month IFSC season, but it concludes here. Olympic invitations waiting to be handed out.
It was crazy because the entire season led up to that event, basically. So it was incredibly stressful.
And there were 3 U.S. girls in the comp, and there was 1 spot.
And there's 3 U.S. girls there, and 1 spot.
So much pressure.
Yeah, it was so stressful. I did not sleep for the entire week leading up to the comp. Literally was going to bed at 9 and waking up at midnight, and then I was awake for the day.
Just to remind you, this is a combined competition, so we do all 3 disciplines.
Sport climbing has 3 main disciplines, and because we only got 1 medal for the 2020 Olympics, we had to do a combined event, which basically is kind of like a triathlon. I'm a boulderer and lead climber more, but because I have an actual history in speed climbing from youth climbing, I had more experience in speed than a lot of the other girls competing in Toulouse.
Ready? Absolutely explodes out the blocks, Kyra Condé. She's got a really quick start. She's flying so far. You can see she's just going full tilt, leaving nothing behind and clocking an 8.89. That is a massive result for Kyra Condé.
The way the day of competition is set up, you speed climb first, you boulder in the middle, and then you lead climb last. I did about as best as I possibly could have in speed. And I was feeling pretty good after bouldering. I did well, but not quite as good as I could have.
Could Kyra Condé be the first climber in this boulder round to find 4 tops? Oh, she went up and just missed it.
I topped 3 out of the 4 climbs, and if I had gotten that 4th top, I would have just been super set. And so, of course, I was kind of regretting that I messed up this last climb. But at that point, there's nothing you can do about it, so I felt good going into the lead climb, but I knew that I needed to do really well on it.
Without wanting to over-dramatize it, I don't think it's exaggerated to say this has got to be the biggest moment in Kyra Condé's competition climbing career.
So when I looked at this lead climb, I was like, oh no, this is super not my style. As far as lead climbs go, I'm a lot better at the straightforward ones. And this one was really tricky, and there was a couple different sequences you could do through a couple different sections.
Needs to get everything she can out of the lead route, and I think the tactic from what we're seeing so far is just climb as fast as you can, get as many moves done as possible. I wonder if she might have got herself slightly tied up here, Kyra.
If I go back and watch that lead climb, it was a total mess. Like, I could have fallen at any point on that climb. I was just so determined to do well that I didn't let myself mess up.
Surviving move by move, but she's pushing on, and she's now heading into the roof. Every move could be absolutely crucial for her ranking and therefore for her potential participation in the Olympics in Tokyo.
When I fell off the lead climb, I felt like I had given it my all. I don't think I could have done any better on it. And so I took a moment, I untied and I went behind the wall to grab my stuff. And you usually can go right immediately into the audience. And I was freaking out a little bit because I didn't really want to know how it was. I didn't want to go out and be like, oh, that was not enough.
Brilliant fight from Kyra Condi. What an hour she has ahead of her watching the remaining climbers.
I came out and I had to still watch 10 more girls climb. And so there was an hour of just pure stress. I, of course, was thinking about how I could have done better in bouldering. So I had the calculator app open and the actual results app open. I was basically doing math over and over again. I was holding two phones and I was watching and just stressing, just refreshing results, making sure my math was right. If this person beats me, then I'll get 13th place. And if this person doesn't beat me, I'll get 11th place. I've never been that stressed before, ever, in my life. Basically, once their third to last climber went, I was pretty much very positive of my math, and that's when I fully burst into tears. I knew I had qualified.
Donc, cette face musculaire, elle doit aussi la lever. Messieurs, dames, il nous en reste une. On va passer dans un gabarit complètement différent. On la mettrait quand même plus du côté des bloqueuses, mais il nous a prouvé qu'elle était capable de faire des finales en Coupe du Monde. On l'a retrouvé. C'est quelque chose près, on va dire. Elle a autant de talent que sa compatriote. Elle aussi fait partie de l'équipe.
Both my parents were there. I think they were just as nervous as me before this event. My dad could not sleep the night before. And my mom's a huge Olympic fan, so she actually even bought tickets to go to Tokyo, well before I qualified. Oh my God!
What do you think it means for you to be one of the first climbing Olympians?
It's crazy. So there's a while when I was okay, well, if I don't qualify for 2020, I could try to go for 2024. And I was man, but I really want to be part of 2020 because it's the first time it's ever going to be
special.
It's there's never going to be the first time climbing's in the Olympics ever again.
No.
And so to be part one of those 20 women, it's I don't know, it's such a huge honor. I'm super excited.
We do start this half hour with more on how the coronavirus is impacting the sports world. New announcements overnight of events being postponed or canceled, and young athletes robbed of their chances to shine.
Officials are considering all options, including canceling the Olympic Games altogether. So CBS News foreign correspondent Raymond Asensio reports on a potential situation that the world has not seen since World War II.
If the coronavirus pandemic hasn't gotten under control, then the Tokyo 2020 Games will be scrapped. That's according to Tokyo 2020 President Yoshiro Mori, and in some of the strongest language yet that we've heard from him. He said he just doesn't see a scenario where the Olympics could be held.
Of course, the idea of thousands of athletes flying in, competing together, tourists from around the world packed into stadiums, then that is clearly cause for concern.
As we saw the impact of the coronavirus hitting different countries and different regions, we then moved to a situation of just realizing that the games themselves might not be able to stay in the period planned starting on the 24th of July in 2020. There were events getting cancelled, there were events getting postponed, there were athletes who were having challenges getting to events, there were athletes having challenges even training.
In order to safeguard the health of the athletes and everybody involved in the Olympic Games, and to make a contribution to the containment of the coronavirus, we agreed to postpone the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 to summer 21.
When I heard about the Olympics being cancelled, it affected me because I was training hard, but I felt like they were looking after their athletes and health comes first. And I think we all understood that.
This unique Olympic debut for these sports had taken a twist that none of us expected at the start of the journey. Delays the Olympic debut, and people have been planning for 6.5 years. To move that by a year is quite complex because it does have a huge impact on all of their sports. I think the other thing that we really should highlight is how much we understand the situation that the athletes are in. The restrictions in place in their different countries, the personal challenges they may have, let alone the ability for them to get out and practice their sport.
まずほとんど外出ができないから家の中でスケートもすることもできないし、なんて言うんだろう、すごいかからないように家の中で待機するしかない状態です。
COVID took the ability for athletes to use the entire globe as their landscape. Some of them are probably training as alone as they ever have before. There's also just so much weight on the athlete as a human being in the various ways that we've all been affected at a personal level.
It's been really sad times, you know, for humanity last year, you know, lots of people suffering, lots of change, not knowing what is happening, you know, that makes us insecure, makes us scared. My son was born in the middle of the quarantine. You know, first time being a mom, and when I first met my son, like, I couldn't really look at him because I had this mask on, so it was a crazy experience, but thank God everything went good, and I hope this all passes really soon.
You know, you put yourself in the shoes of an athlete who's probably competed in a few qualification events, probably come very close to qualification, has an Olympic dream to be in that first wave of Olympic skateboarders, surfers, sport climbers, but at the same time, doesn't know exactly when those events are going to take place, doesn't know if they'll be allowed to travel, you don't know if you're going to be able to prepare.
次の大会がいつになるのかとか、そういう情報がなるべく早く、家の中で毎日動くようにはしていて、トレーニングをちゃんとしています。
You think about an athlete that may have qualified already for Tokyo. They have certainty on one side, but maybe their whole preparation program has been impacted. Maybe their whole ability to travel and prepare has been impacted. You know, our thoughts every day are out there to the athletes going on this journey.
The International Olympic Committee is denying reports that the already postponed Tokyo Games set for this summer will be canceled.
Some worry a year delay still won't be enough to hold the Games safely.
These athletes have to figure out how to sustain desire for a pinnacle, a goal that is constantly being moved farther, and then sometimes it seems closer, and then sometimes just dissolve. Is it even there anymore?
Nobody at this moment can predict conditions of a pandemic. This leads to many speculations. So there is a speculation about cancellation, a plan B, about everything. But all these speculations are hurting the athletes in their preparations who have already to overcome the restrictions they are facing. This fight against the virus is a tough one, but we are fighting this fight for and like Olympic athletes. So we are not speculating of whether the games are taking place. We are working on how the games will take place.
Games is Olympic Games. It's the world stage. Parents didn't even want their kids to skateboard. And now, those skaters are going to have the opportunity to change the world.
Skating is the great equalizer, you know? It transcends racial boundaries, economic boundaries, even language, backgrounds. I hope that the camaraderie that we usually see in skateboarding is what shines through in the Olympics, because I feel like that's such a big part of it.
It's a culture. You know, people don't fall in love with it just standing on a surfboard. People fall in love with the whole thing. And it doesn't start and end on the ride of the wave.
I think all these sports can teach people that there are a million different ways to get from point A to point B, that we are not locked in the box, and there's no need for us all to see the world the same way.
I mean, I would just hope that they tell stories of the athletes that are human, that do show that this is a lifestyle, that this is a passion, that this is something people dedicate their lives to doing, not just for the Olympics, not just for competition, but to experience a community.
You have good inverts, so you could find that spot.
Thank you. We have really big mountains, actually. There's mountains over there. There's mountains over there.
Really? 13,000?
My dad pushes me.
Yeah, I know. We noticed that. I want to be you in my next life.
gonna follow you if you're gonna get the little wall ride.
Okay. Backstyle ollie, 50-50 here.
Front D.
Wait, backstyle ollie, no, then I'm gonna carve around.
Okay, no 50 after the backside.
No, because that sets me up that way, so carve around, frontside disaster, then come back over this way and frontside. Kickflip, and I knew I was going to fall for sure.